In a previous video, we talked about travel budgeting in retirement. Today, we're going to talk about travel spending in retirement, how that compares to the budgeting, and how we did in 2021. Let's first do a quick review of the key points from the first video that we did on travel budgeting in retirement. And the key points are, you can see that, have an annual travel budget, figure out at the beginning of the year how much money you are going to spend on travel for the year after you've already accounted for money you're going to spend on the necessities of life, rent, food, insurance, that sort of thing, then how much you have left for travel. Number two, know what your travel style is. What kind of a traveler are you? Are you a budget traveler primarily? Or are you a mid-range traveler? Or are you a luxury traveler? Or are you somewhat of a combination between the three? And that's probably the most likely. Three, when you're doing your budgeting and figuring out where you're going to stay and how much things cost, never sacrifice comfort and safety just for the sake of price. There may be a reason, if you find a place that's really cheap to stay, there may be a reason for that. It may be in a terrible neighborhood. It may be right next to a bunch of bars that are going to stay open all night long and your bedroom window opens right out onto the street where they are, something like that. Okay, number four, manage your expectations. Don't expect that wherever you go in the world that it's going to be just like where you're from. And of course, that's the joy of travel, to experience new things, new people, new ways that they look at things. Don't expect it to conform to your experience where you live and where you normally exist. Okay, and the last one there, always remember there are three key variables when you're putting together your budget. The first one is, of course, money. The second one is time. How long and how far can you go on the money that you have, and what are the destinations going to be? And then I'd say another one is to have a benchmark. And what we talked about in the first video was a website called budgetyourtrip.com, which uses supposedly information provided by different travelers and talks about, okay, what did they actually spend on their trips. So using the principles that we talked about in that first video, let's see, and we tracked our spending in 2021 on the trips that we took. Let's see how close did we come to actually following those kind of guidelines. How much did we spend and where did we go? Let's see. Okay, so let's see where we went in 2021, how many trips we took and how much that cost. Okay, so in 2021, we traveled for a total of 159 days. Actually, there were some more days in there, but they're not counted in this 159 day figure that I have here. The total cost for that 159 days was $27,282, or approximately $86 a day per person. Those 6 trips, we spent 16 days in the very expensive category. We spent 14 days in on the 2 trips that we categorize as expensive, 48 days on the 2 moderate trips, and 81 days on the inexpensive trip. Now, in these numbers, we don't count airfare because that's a variable that you can easily figure out for yourself, and can depend on a lot of different things. Are you flying business class? Are you flying premium economy? Are you flying economy? Did you find a very incredibly cheap price from where you're going to, from where you are? So those can change. So we don't count that. And we took another 14 days on a cruise in Greece, but we don't count that in these figures because cruises are going to they're pretty set. I mean, you can figure out ahead of time if you're planning how much that's going to cost. Also, if you have a all-inclusive kind of cruise, well, those are a lot easier to figure out. So I don't count that in there. And so the figures that, the categories that I use in figuring out how much we spend, there are 5 categories that I use. Now, some people can use, I've seen some budget planners that use a lot of different categories. To me, that's just way too complicated. So I break it into 5 categories: accommodation, food and drink. So I include alcohol in that. You know, sometimes you're going to have something to drink, sometimes you're not. It's too complicated to keep separating those out. Transport, and that doesn't count transport to the place that you're going, to the country you're going to. It's transport within the country: subways, buses, taxis, Uber, that sort of thing. Entertainment, and that includes if you're going on tours, and miscellaneous for anything else. So those are the categories we use. So our total cost for those trips was $86 per person per day. So let's now go into where we went and how much it cost, and how can you do the same thing or not. Okay, so out of those 6 trips, where did we go and how much did we spend? Okay, let's go with the first one, the one trip that I put in the very expensive category in 2021, and that was to Maui. And we spent 16 days in Maui. This doesn't count airfare, but accommodation, food and drink, entertainment, and so forth, and miscellaneous, that would cost $7,202. Which gets down to about $225 per day per person. The benchmark that I used at budgetyourtrip.com, they put $220 per person per day in the mid-range category. So you can see we were pretty much just slightly above mid-range. That still was by far the most expensive trip that we took in 2021. Okay, we also had 2 shorter trips within the mainland USA, and the U.S. is considered, and North America, with the exception of Mexico, are categorized as it's categorized as an expensive category. Okay, of course, it's kind of ridiculous to use the U.S. As a benchmark for all of it, because some places are much more expensive than others. The 2 places we went, Lake Havasu City, Arizona, and Knoxville, Tennessee, would not be considered, you would think, as very expensive places to be. But let's just put those numbers in here anyway. So in Lake Havasu City, we were there for 3 days. It cost a grand total of $480. Or that works out to $80 per person per day. Okay. Knoxville, Tennessee, we went for 11 days. We spent $1,361, which is works out to $62 a day per person. But, there's some caveats there. Knoxville was pretty inexpensive because we stayed with friends for several days, so that put our lodging costs down to, zip. The benchmark for the USA is, in the budget style, is $83 a day, mid-range $223. So we were well within the budget category for traveling in the U.S. Now, if you came from outside the U.S. and were you had to fly here from Europe and you didn't have friends to stay with or whatever, and you wanted to have a comfortable time, you should probably be looking closer at that, spending about $220 at least dollars a day. If you're going to go to Scottsdale or Beverly Hills or Las Vegas, you're going to spend a lot more than that. Okay, 2 of our trips were to what we would call moderately expensive destinations, Turkey and Albania. We spent 23 days in Turkey, 25 days in Albania, so they're pretty much the same amount of time. Turkey, we spent $3,506, and that worked out to $76 a day per person. The benchmark says that it should cost, if you're mid-range, $32 a day, and luxury $99. So we were sort of in the middle there in terms of how much we spent per day, according to the benchmark. Albania cost almost the same per day, $4,077 in Albania, and so you can see how that worked out and how that compared to the benchmark. So the point is that you could in Albania we spent $82 a day. Luxury, according to the benchmark, should be $108 a day. I wouldn't consider that we were, living in a luxury situation, but it was still very affordable. And the last trip that we took that would be in the what I call the inexpensive category was to Georgia, the country of Georgia. This one this is the winner in terms of cost effectiveness. So as you can see, we spent 81 days there. It cost us $10,656, which works out to about $66 a day per person. The benchmark says that you should be, if you're mid-range, it would only cost you $23 a day per person, or in the luxury category, $99 per person. I think since ours was 66, one of the things that kind of pumped that overall cost up was that we were on a number of multi-day trips throughout different parts of Georgia, which pumped up the entertainment portion, because we counted those tours as in that category. And then also on a number of those, we were staying in an Airbnb in the capital in Tbilisi, didn't give that apartment up while we went off on sometimes for a week touring other places. So in effect, we were paying a double price there for a room. Okay, so those were our 6 trips of 2021. Okay, so let me leave you with a couple of final takeaways from today's video. And these are what I'd like you to remember in order to travel better and longer. And first of all is spend more time in inexpensive locations. That certainly it would seem fairly obvious, especially from the numbers that I presented. Adjust your travel style to the location that you're going to. What we did, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, is in some places that are very expensive locations, you're not going to be able to, if you want to make your dollar go a lot longer for traveling, you're not going to be able to stay in 5-star hotels. If that's your only trip of the year, fine. But if you want to, like we do, spend at least 6 months out of the year on the road, you adjust it. And on the other side of it, in inexpensive locations, you can spend not that much money for beautiful places. The last one that is probably the most important here is to appreciate wherever you are. You're a visitor, you're a guest in these places, and just enjoy it wherever you go and savor the journey. So, appreciated giving the opportunity to tell you some of these numbers. If it was interesting to you, please let me know. Please leave a comment. If there are ways that we can do this better. Maybe you don't like my blackboard, my whiteboards, but I think it's kind of fun to do that. Anyway, have a great day, and in the next video, we're going to talk about what our travel plans are for 2022. Bye-bye.